So we're now on to episode 24, the final commitment ceremony. Well, where do I begin? It's the morning after the night before. We saw Thomas talking to the camera about last night and how things went down. He said he was in his feelings. He was emotional. The homestay virtually made his decision for him. That's what he said. He wasn't being himself. And with that, he's made his decision. That's what he said. Then we saw Keisha and Kwame. Them two were moving around in silence. Did you notice that? No one was speaking. We found out later from Keisha that they haven't spoken all night. She just was not in the mood to even have that discussion. She wants to take it to the couch in front of the experts. Yep, about bloody time as well. I don't understand what took so long. You've had all these weeks to talk about the foolishness that's been going on. You've had all these weeks. You're both to blame, to be honest. You're both to blame. We also heard Jordan talk about whether he should be in love at this stage. Is it normal to be in love at this stage? Yeah, what are we, 7-8 weeks in? Is it normal to be in love at this stage? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But that's his question that he would like to ask the experts. Yeah. We also saw Zoe and Jenna. Jenna saying to Zoe not to get involved in any drama tonight. And Zoe saying, nah, I've got no time for it. I'm going to stay out of it. Yeah, we'll see. Zoe can't help herself, but we'll see. Fast forward, we then saw the guys and the girls in their groups trying to make a decision in regard to whether to stay or leave. And we saw Kwame tell the boys that he's found out that Keisha has been going around telling people that she's single. He found out that this morning. And he just feels so blindsided by it all. He doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't understand any of it. He doesn't know why. Come on, Kwame. You're big and grown. You're 42. Come on. You can't read between the lines. This is your fault. Your fault. Your fault. From the homestay, this is your fault. This guy is so delusional. But then again, he thinks that when he was at Keisha's homestay, everything was good. Because he got on with the sisters. That, as far as he was concerned, he got on with the sisters. Because he was talking to the camera afterwards saying that, yeah, I think it went down well. I think, this day's gone down good. And then when he was at the boys' night, he started saying about, oh, the sisters gave me a grilling. It was a tough day. Which one was it? Which one was it? Which one was it? You're very good at contradicting yourself. You're very good at that. You tell one story to one person and then go and tell a different story over here. Like I said, he's one of those guys, tells a whole pack of lies with a trickle of truth. When we heard Adrian and Zoe talking, we found out from Adrian that him and Thomas haven't really spoken as well. That's awkward. Yeah, so they haven't spoken from last night's hen do, whatever you call it, girls and boys night, that's it. They haven't really spoken. So that's a bit awkward. Yeah. I'm not too sure what to say there. But they're not meant to be anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Those two are not meant to be. They're so different. They're so different. We also found out when Shanita was talking to Keisha that Jordan's last relationship seemed to have lasted quite a few years from the sound of it. Could be a couple of years. And within that period, he still wasn't in love with the girl. So that's a red flag already. And for Shanita to behave the way she's behaving right now, that makes sense to me. And for Jordan to want to be in love with somebody before he moves in with them. Again, that makes sense to me. But it's also quite confusing on Shanita's end, because I know she wants to move forward with this, but with him saying what he said at the dinner party, is making her take a few steps back, because he's not exactly on the same page as her at the moment. And at the same time, how long is too long and how short is too short to say that you're in love with someone? Yeah, it's very confusing. Very confusing. When it came to Sophie and Jonathan, we saw Sophie having her concerns about what her dad was saying to her in regards to Jonathan having the money to look after her in a lifestyle that she's accustomed to. Yeah. That's the biggest red flag there. Daddy's approval and whether Jonathan can meet the requirements. To be honest, I doubt it. These two are on totally different pages. They look good together, but as a couple, deep down, they're not meant to be. So, moving on. Fast forward to the commitment ceremony. First of all, we found out that Mel was unwell, so she was unable to attend this final commitment ceremony. So this time round, we had just Paul and Charlene as our experts. So the first people on the couch were Whitney and Matt. Charlene asked them what their experience has been like with the other couples. And it was Whitney that answered that question by saying, it's been frosty. It's been frosty. She also asked Matt how he was feeling, because he looked very happy on the sofa. And he turned around and says, I feel like a baby unicorn. Something like that, he said. He looked so happy, looked very smug. The guy was grinning from ear to ear. And so was Whitney. Dear me. Love, love, love. What it does to people. I still don't see them being in love. Yeah. I'm still looking at this as lust. But then you saw the rest of the collective, the other couples, looking at them all sideways. Some of them were very happy for them. The others were giving, cutting eye, giving bad looks, making faces, as if to say, this looks so soppy, looks sickly. Because you saw them two on the sofa looking into each other's eyes. Oh, it was just... They look like school kids. It was just too funny to watch. We then saw Zoe pipe up by saying, again, about the experiment. They came in as a couple. They didn't come in as a couple, sorry. They didn't come in as a couple. I don't understand why they're in the experiment. We've had to work hard at our relationships, and they just they just swoon in, choosing each other, and it just doesn't seem fair. Something along those lines, she said. And then we also saw, what's his name? Adrian make a similar comment, just backing up Zoe. And then we heard Matt say something. He said, with no disrespect, but your relationship is a complete fabrication. Yes, that's what he said. Adrian didn't say too much, but Thomas had something to say.
How can you comment on my relationship being a fabrication when you both come in, married to other people, and then decided to get together, and now miraculously after a week you're in love? Good chance.
Oh dear, I've got no word for Thomas. He leaves me speechless. This guy is living in his head. Matt had a point. Thomas had a point in a way in regards to being in love after 1 week, yeah. I'll give them both 1-1. We then heard George intervene by backing up Matt.
Just take it, it's an opinion, you don't have to back it. I don't have to listen to it neither, all yours. I had to listen to all yours.
Again, George had a point. But this time, right message, wrong person delivering it. If the message came from his mum, he would have listened. He doesn't give two hoots about anybody else's opinion. His mum's opinion is the most important.
I'm sorry, I can't listen to that shit anymore. That's okay. It's tiring, mate. It's exhausting. Matt, ignore it. I'm going. Yeah, we're happy for you.
Well, to be honest, most of the couples agreed with Matt. He hasn't learned much by being here. Thomas is still the same drama queen. Thomas likes the sound of his own voice. I'm not too sure he can be helped. And Adrian, at the end of the day, is wasting his time. Anyway, that wasn't going to spoil Matt and Whitney's relationship. No, nobody can spoil that right now. And their decision was they were going to stay. Moving on, the next couple on the couch were April and George. Now, these guys are in a good place. They've come away from their homestay feeling very refreshed, renewed. They said it couldn't have come at a better time, the homestay. They got to see what the outside would look like once they leave the experiment, which was a good sign. They're trying to work out the logistics of a long-distance relationship because none of them have been in that position before. And then Charlene turned around and said to April, would you leave your London life to move to George? And her answer was,
yeah, I want to do that.
It's positive, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's good.
I'm hoping that it will work and we will get to that point.
I've never heard April say she would move to the country eventually or want to.
Yeah.
That was a nervous laugh. She hasn't thought about it. She's not thinking about it. So please, George, do not hang on her every word. Because she's not there. Not too sure she'll ever be there. And if she does plan to move, it won't be anytime soon. And when I say soon, I'm talking about in the next 2 years. That is, if you're still together. Anyway, after all of that, they both said they're going to stay. Moving on, our next couple on the couch were Thomas and Adrian. They were asked how their week had gone. And it wasn't that great. That's what Thomas said, it wasn't that great. Same with Adrian, wasn't that great. Adrian talked about how his friends, the girlfriends, were asking so much about the sex side of their relationship. Every question was sex, and more sex. And then when Thomas was asked the question, why do you think that was? He says, because it's always been a part of how he goes into relationships. And after such a length of time of being in the experiment, they would expect sex to have already happened. The rest of the couples have gone down that road already, majority of them. And he can't understand why we haven't got there yet. Then Charlene asked them both, so have you not had sex? Thomas turned around and said no. And so did Adrian. And then Charlene asked, is this something that you both agreed on? Adrian turned around and said, it's not part of how I am in regards to sex, and in this environment, it's not something I'm willing to do. That's what he said. I'm a little conflicted here. I'm not too sure how to take this. Why were they matched? I'm confused. You come into a relationship, you don't want sex? You don't touch him? You don't cuddle him? They don't cuddle in bed? Oh, this is throwing me. Oh, this is throwing me. I've got no words. We then hear Charlene ask Adrian a question.
Adrian, what do you usually need in a relationship to feel comfortable to be sexual?
At one point, we saw Adrian get emotional trying to answer that question. And then when he composed himself, he continued to say,
To go and have sex, to go
off, that's some really, really dangerous territory. And
But don't all relationships have their ups and downs? It's going well, it's going really, really well, and then it drops. Yeah, don't all relationships behave in that way? Well, the majority, I'm sure, do. So, what's he trying to say? Is it because it's Thomas? His highs, his lows, his anxieties, Thomas causes all that. You don't know whether you're coming and going with Thomas. He's a drama queen. He causes so much drama in the dinner parties. I can sort of understand where he's coming from if we're talking on that level. I can understand. It's too much. It's going well, it's going well, it's going really, really well, and then it does this. And then it drops. And then it hits the ground. And then it's like, here we go again. Yeah, I can understand. We also saw Adrian defend Thomas when Paul said to him that he sees them two as just good friends. Adrian got his back up and said, no, we're not just friends. We're not just friends. That's not how I see him. We're more than just friends. We're more than just friends. But Thomas's answer to that was,
I completely respect you and I respect your boundaries and I do respect them, but it's also got to work for me.
I certainly get what he means. I do. I just don't understand how these two are put together. I really don't. But at the end of the day, when it came to making their decision, Thomas put leave and Adrian put to stay. Yes, Adrian put to stay, Thomas put to leave. And because of Thomas's decision, Adrian said, I'm going to be respectful of Thomas's decision if he still wants to leave. That's what he said. If he still wants to leave. So now the decision was put on Thomas now to see whether he still wanted to leave or change his mind. Yeah, that's where we got to. Eventually, after ifing and butting about whether to stay or leave, Thomas decides to stay and they're going to work on the intimacy side of their relationship, such as the tactileness. Yeah, that's what they've agreed to do. So that's where they ended. I'm still not living on hope on these two. I really am not. So we're going to leave these two here. Moving on. Our next couple were Sophie and Jonathan. I don't really have much to say here. I think I've already hashed this one out already in regards to getting her father's approval. He needs to be financially stable to be able to look after her if they decide to have a family. Yeah, and all of that. Yeah. And then they went on to how his behaviour has changed slightly. He's learnt a little bit more during this process in regards to when to keep his mouth shut. Yeah. Which is a big lesson he's learnt, to be honest. It's a big lesson. He's still making mistakes, but he's getting there. He's getting there. And that really was it. Yeah, not much else I can say here. So they decided to stay anyway. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but I'm not living on hope. I'm not living on hope. Moving on to Jenna and Zoe. Again, I don't really have much to say here. We've already been through these guys again. It's all about the logistics of where they live, whether they want to meet in the middle, whether Zoe's going to budge, whether Jenna's going to budge. And again about the children thing.
Jenna, what are your thoughts about having children?
I can't give an answer right now. I don't know.
You don't know?
I still sit with what I said before about children. You either know in your teens whether you want children. By the time you hit 30, you already know you don't want them. It's as simple as that for me. Simple.
I've always said since day one, though, that I'm open to a conversation. I've never not said that. I say I'm more of a no, but I'm open to a conversation.
He did definitely said no. Because he said, if you want kids, that's going to be a problem. That's what he said to me.
And Zoe's right. Because if I do recall, she said that the day of the wedding, when they were taking their photographs.
And what I also don't want is for you to be like, oh, the door isn't completely shut. But then in a few years' time, the conversation comes up and then you're like, no, I'm a definite no. And then I've wasted this time and now I really want kids.
I think exactly how Zoe's thinking. You don't want to be caught out later on, finding out that this person doesn't want children. They've led you on to think they do want children. And then 2 years down the line, they turn around and said, oh, no, not for me. I've got no time for that nonsense. When you start dating somebody, in the first few weeks of dating them, you better find out whether they want kids. And if they don't, do not try to change their mind. Just let it go, and move on. At the end of the day, they both came to the same conclusion that they're going to stay. Again, I'm not living on hope. The next couple on the couch were Shanita and Jordan. Again, there's not much I can say here. We were rehashing over old conversations all over again. What was said at the homestay, what was said over the dinner table. Yeah, I'm tired now. Same conversation. They always seem to have a way of resolving things and then getting back on track. And then we fall off again. Then we get back on track. Then we fall off again. Like a normal marriage. Yeah. But Shanita seems to be the stronger one out of the two of them here. And where it comes to Jordan and his feelings, this is what he said.
How do you feel about how you've performed through this experiment?
See, I've been 100% myself, and it's upsetting that to some degree that me being myself, I feel like it's sometimes not good enough.
So that's how Jordan was feeling. It's really down to Shanita to reassure him more. And that's what she says she's going to work on. So I'm not worried about these guys. I still have my hopes that they will succeed outside of this experiment. Whether it be for years, I'm not sure about that. But I think they will survive the longest. That's my vision. Yeah. In conclusion, these two decided to stay. Last but not least, we had Keisha and Kwame. We know they were left till last because there's a lot to unpack here. So it started with Paul saying to Kwame, hey, what's going on? Normally you greet me when you sit on the sofa, but Kwame was not in that mood. He said it's been a hard week. Yeah, it's been a hard week. We then heard from Keisha. She told Paul about what's happened during the week, about going to his homestay and not really seeing anything to do with his family. All she saw was the park where his children go to ride their bikes. And all she saw was the same boys that were at the wedding. But none of his blood family, which is what Paul was saying. You didn't meet any of his blood family. And she said no. She thought, being so far along in this process, this is where we would be, getting to meet the family. He's met mine, but I know nothing about him. That part of him he keeps very guarded, and I know he's very close with his family, so I don't understand why we're still here. I don't understand why we're still at the first hurdle, is virtually what she was saying. Paul then brings the question back to Kwame, how was your stay going to see Keisha? And he said he could see that Keisha was very comfortable in her surroundings, in her own home. But once I entered the home, I found the energy had shifted. Then Keisha goes on to say what happened for the energy to shift. That's where she talked about her past story, about being pregnant at 15, etc., etc. And Kwame laughing and giggling all the way through her trying to be serious. And that's where the energy shifted. And it was at that point that she said she checked out. She'd had enough. She'd checked out. Paul then asked Kwame how did he feel the conversation between the sisters went. How did that go? How did that situation go? And he was saying they did give me a grilling. They're asking no ends of questions. And on top of that, I felt I did give a good impression of myself, and hopefully they liked me. That's virtually what he was saying. I think they liked me. It went well. That's what he said. Paul then asked Keisha about the feedback from her sisters. And she said,
I went round the table. I said, do you think Kwame is the man for me? And I got 3 no's.
Yes, she got 3 no's. You saw Kwame's face was, he didn't know what to do with himself. The poor guy, he had the life sucked out of him. He really thought they liked him. I'm just quite shocked that he couldn't read them. I'm quite shocked he couldn't read them. He was absolutely delusional. Absolutely delusional. And for once I actually saw emotion. He looked devastated. I'm not too sure why he was devastated, because he wasn't really checking for my girl, Keisha. He wasn't. So why are you devastated? Why are you offended? I don't get it. During this discussion, we also found out that what Kwame puts out in front of everybody is not what happens behind closed doors. He'll always turn around and say he's feeling Keisha, she does this, or I really like her like this, and yeah, she's a good cook, and all the, as she said, he's a good talker. As she said, he's a good talker. But behind closed door, we don't really say much. Not much goes on. That's the fakeness that he puts across. And I knew it from the beginning. I knew it. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And Paul continued to say that he had noticed that when it comes to managing their relationship, or whatever you want to call this, he's the spokesperson. He manages what's said between them. He manages what's said to the rest of the group, and he manages what's said in front of the experts. Yes. Paul, you've got him to a T. This guy. And Paul continues to say that all these weeks, while this is happening, none of you brought it to the couch. And I blame both of you for letting this simmer. From week 1, there was an issue. From week 1. And I'm surprised that Keisha didn't open her mouth more. Because her mouth is big enough. I'm surprised she didn't open her mouth more. But it was just sad to see them go. Well, it's sad to see her go. Oh, I'm actually jumping the gun. I forgot to mention, she put leave, he put stay. Yes, he was that delusional that this was going to work. I don't know where he was going with the stay. I really don't know. This guy was so blindsided by all of this, he didn't see it coming. He really didn't see it coming. I don't know what planet he was on. Were you in the same program we were watching? I don't know what planet he was on. But with her saying leave, he had no choice but to change his mind. Because she told him, yes, she told him she wasn't staying. No matter what, she wasn't staying. So he had no choice but to leave.
I can't even express how much I wanted to see you two work. And we appreciate your time, and thank you so much for participating.
Thank you guys. Good luck. Thank you.
I nearly forgot the speech that Keisha gave to the group. I was emotional. Just as you saw the rest of the group get emotional, exactly what happened to me too. Yeah, I was emotional. This didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen. Keisha came here for the right reasons. Kwame didn't. It's as simple as that.
I honestly feel blindsided. I feel hurt. I feel surprised yet again. I was definitely willing to fight for me and Keisha because I honestly didn't think this was the end of the road for us.
I thought it only fair for him to have his last few words. Yeah, the same bullshit that he comes out with, the same bullshit. Nothing's changed. I still don't like him.
I feel a bit emotional right now, actually. And I think it's because I feel free. And that goes to show that the marriage wasn't right for me. I know what it's like when I'm on the road to love. And I was nowhere near it with Kwame.
I'm so glad you woke up and smelt the coffee. I'm so glad. Because he wasn't for you. But it's so sad that she wasn't able to fully experience this whole experiment. It's so sad. But I'm going to wish her well. I've got nothing to say about Kwame. I've got nothing to say at all. So, with that being said, this is where I'm going to leave it. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.